Okay. Good evening, ma. You're welcome to PED 1, which is reading in early childhood and primary education. I want to believe that this is the first time we're having this course. We have not done anything on it, but I stand to be corrected. In case we have done something on it before, let me know. But based on what I'm saying, this is the first class we are holding on this PED 112. Okay, so I think we are good to go. So, um, as the course says, PED 112, reading in early childhood and primary education. Without even reading yet, we should have a kind of clue on what we are likely going to be doing in this course, since it is reading in early childhood and primary education. Probably it's going to be a course that will deal with how you help kids, as children, to develop the reading habit and, of course, how to read effectively. This course, as a form of introduction to the course, this course exposes you to the fundamentals, methods, strategies, and resources of reading or reading instruction at the preschool and lower primary school levels. Through many strategies that can be used for teaching reading skills, as well as examples of ways to create an environment in the preschool classrooms that will nurture children's reading or children's reading ability and their zest for learning. Now, by the time you complete this course, what are the things you'll be able to do? The general aim of the course, the overall aim, the long-term vision of the course. One is that you'll be able to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the key theories related to reading skills development. So there are theories that have been formulated on reading them as they relate to this particular reading, which is for the early childhood, that is preschool or primary school children. Then we'll also be able to determine and use a range of reading strategies, resources, and experiences for teaching reading at school and primary school level. We'll also be able to analyze the benefits and drawbacks of various reading instructional strategies and effectively select those that can aid the reading skills and language development of pupils. And of course, you also learn how to develop skills and how to implement coherent goal-oriented lessons and lesson sequences that are designed to engage pupils at any given reading level. Another thing you become or you will learn is that you learn how to select appropriate strategies and reading materials for evaluating pupils' attainment of reading skills. That is how to assess them. Then you will learn how to discuss the steps you would take to develop in the children the ability to comprehend and infer. They should be able to make inferences after you've uh, helped them to understand a particular uh, essay or so. Now, design school programs that will facilitate the teaching of reading skills. Now, those are the things the course is trying to achieve in you or bring out in you, and that will be done under several, you know, units and modules that course uh, objective and aim. That's a learning outcome. Excuse me. Let's try to. Okay, it's like there's no table of contents in this material. But in any ways, let's try to see the aim. The one we just finished reading is the learning outcome. Like after you are done, what will happen? But now let's look at the aim of the course. The aim of the course is to expose undergraduates to the fundamentals of reading instruction, starting from the preschool level, and prepare them sufficiently to develop the reading skills of young children. It's as simple as that. Straightforward, concise, and straight to point. So we've seen but you can get the ideas of what we'll be doing from this. In module one, we're going to talk about the language skill, and under that, we'll be talking about the four language skills we have: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The LSRW. These are the four language skills we have. And then we are going to be learning the connection between the four skills and their relationships. And in Unit 2, we'll talk about the nature and importance of reading. How, why should I read? We'll learn that the nature of reading, the core characteristics of reading and other language skills. That will learn factors that affect reading. We'll learn factors that affect reading, and then we are done with Module 1. In Module 2, we'll talk about reading in early childhood. Now, that's the one that concerns you because you are trying to be a good teacher for the children of the preschool or primary school. So, under that, reading in early childhood, you'll be learning language development in early years. That's for children. The importance of language in early childhood, and then language development processes. And of course, we'll talk about the theories of language development, the implication for developing reading skills. Under that, we'll be talking about behavior theory. That's when we'll be studying theories, linguistic theory, the interactionist theory, social learning theory, research, and then implication of the theories to reading skills development. Now, we'll also talk about reading skills development. We'll talk about emergent literacy strategies. We'll talk about reading environment in early childhood. Where do they read? The home, they read at home, they read in the school, then home-school relationship or connection. And then we have reading at the primary school level. We also talk about nature of reading at primary school, reading fluency and reading comprehension. And then under that, we'll be looking at the goals of teaching reading, models of reading processes, and reading problems at the primary grade, and also reading fluency, strategies for developing fluency, reading comprehension, connection between reading fluency and comprehension, factors that affect reading fluency and comprehension, and so on and so forth. There's quite a lot of things to do in this course. And the last part of it is talking about reading and comprehension strategies. And then we have approaches, methods, and techniques of teaching reading. And we'll go to areas and then the reading class room. And the final thing is reading skills. If you have noticed all of the materials we have been talking about or reading about all this while, you find out that they don't only teach you how to teach a particular subject. The one that talked about science, the one that talked about mathematics, they won't only, you will see that in the table of content, it doesn't only contain what the course is all about, how to the course, benefit of the course, or whatever. It also contains how you have to assess the course, like how you have to give them probably classwork, how you have to set their exams, what you should assess them on after they are done with the subject. So that means it's not only you learning how to dish out the knowledge to them, you also learn how to professionally assess them on those subject matters. So let's say the first thing we're having today, at least we have a kind of clue of what we are going to do in this course. We know that we will learn theories. We learn how to teach the pupils how to read. We learn how to teach them to understand. We learn how to assess them. You have a clue of things you are likely going to do now to develop in them the reading habits and fluency and the rest of them. Well, let's start with the first thing first. In module one, we're talking about the language skills. And of course, like we have said, the LSWR or so. So the language skills, we have four of them actually. I think you should ask yourself a question. Why did they call them language skills? It means if I'm going to be good in any language, be it English, my dialect, Yoruba, or Hausa, or Igbo, French, German, any language at all, if I'm going to be good in any language, I had to, so I need to be able to do four things in that language. That is what will show that I belong to this language, or I know this language at least, or I am good in this language. What are the four things? That's what we call the skills, the language skills. Four language skills. The first thing you need to learn here is that we have four of them. So when you are asked in the exam, how many language skills we have four of them. To learn these four language skills we're talking about, we learn under two content. One is the language skills themselves, one by one, and then connecting the four skills together. How are they related? If I know how to read in a language, why shouldn't I know to speak in the language? Or how is my knowing how to read the language connected to my speaking the language or writing in the language? So you are going to learn the connection between the four of them, how they are interrelated in producing in a person efficiency in the language or fluency in the language. So as a form of introduction to this unit, let's read a bit now. Language development involves four fundamental interactive abilities. Language development, I'll take that again, involves four fundamental and interactive abilities. So, like I've mentioned earlier, I would be able to speak well in a language if I, of course, can do the following. One, listen in that language, speak in that language, read in that language, and then write in that language. The LSRW: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So the skills are related to each other by two parameters of the mode of communication, which is oral and written. The oral and written, that means the word of mouth and then the one you are writing down. That is the relationship between these four. Now, and the direction of communication, which is receiving or producing. In any form, in any case that you find yourself in life, in the process of communication, you are either the one receiving or you are the one producing the message. In this case now, you are receiving, I am producing. In another case, you may be the one producing while I'm receiving. So in any case, you stand in between the two at a particular time. You are either receiving or you are producing. So based on these parameters, so what are the two parameters now that shows the relationship between the four language development skills? We have oral or written, and then receiving or producing. So those are the, okay, the screen, the fonts. I don't know the way they do your materials. Your material, and we have to be moving around and around and around. Okay, let me try. See it now. It's going to cut out some stuff. Well, let's be managing it like this. I think it's better like this. So, based on these parameters, this is where I am now. Based on these parameters, listening and speaking are referred to as oral skills. That means the one that has to do with the mouth. While reading and writing are referred to as literacy skills. These parameters that we mentioned that we achieve in two forms, is either in oral or written or in and producing. So we can classify listening and speaking. We can group them together and call them oral skills. They are oral skills, or you call them oral, anyway you call it oral skills. While in the writing and reading, we can refer to them as literacy skills. Now, speaking and writing are productive, while listening and reading are receptive. You are engaging seriously to bring out a result. It's just like mixing something together to come to bring about a product. something. When you are speaking, you are constructing your words, you are, out ideas, so you are producing something. Likewise, when you're writing down something that is in the mind, something that is based on experience, you are giving out, you are dishing out something. So it's production. Why, when you are listening, you are actually not producing, but you are receiving. So we call them receptive skills. So when they ask you, are known as the receptive skills in the language development skills that we have, the listening and when I listen to you, I am receiving from you. When I'm writing down, I am also receiving from you. When you are speaking, you are producing something to me. When you write, you are producing something that I can later feed on, like, to receive something. So in this unit, it is important to give a brief description of the skills and establish the interrelatedness and interconnectedness between and among them. It should be noted that effective acquisition leads to an effective development of another, and that the skills all work together to ensure that individuals' level of language use and communication are achieved. What we're just trying to say is that imagine if you said you are good in a language and you can only it. So when somebody is speaking the language to you, you can't listen to it, like you can't understand what the person is saying, but also only write it down, but you cannot read it. Then something is wrong. We can't call that kind of person or the other interrelated. There is interrelationship with them. What are the objectives? Well, by the time we are done with this unit, you should be able to do the following. One is to discuss each of the four language skills, differentiate between the skills, and explain their interrelatedness. How are they related? Then list the micro skills related to each of the skills. Under each of those, you have micro skills that kind of aid the effective use of each of them. So you will learn those micro skills. They'll also be able to enumerate the importance of the skills in early childhood development. So skill number one we're starting with today is listening. Don't forget, the skills are either literacy skills or receptive skills. What we've learned earlier, that is either a receptive skill or a listening, sorry, a productive skill, literacy. So let's get to, I've dropped an icebreaker there. Language development involves four fundamental and interactive abilities, which are, so there is a question there for you, an icebreaker for you to know the listening, speaking, writing, and reading. Okay, let's see. Listening is a receptive skill in the oral mode. In the oral mode, listening involves hearing and understanding what we hear. It involves identifying the sounds of speech and processing them into words and sentences. When we listen, we use our ears to receive individual sounds, letters, stress, rhythm, and pauses. And we use our brain to convert this into messages that are meaningful to us. We are often faced with two listening situations: interactive and non-interactive. Interactive listening situations include face-to-face conversations and telephone calls in which we are alternatively, sorry, alternately listening and speaking at the same time, and in which we have a chance to ask for clarification, repetition, or slower speech from the conversing partner. Some non-interactive, okay, let's stop there. That'll be too fast. So what are we saying here? The first thing we should know is that listening is a receptive skill. Who are these people like this now? Come into, so listening is a receptive skill. That is the first one you will know, that listening is a receptive skill. Is not a productive skill. It's not under the productive skill. It's a receptive skill. When you are listening, you are receiving. You are receiving when you are listening. So it when you only hear to understand the person, you are not listening. Listening is going to involve your brain, your mind, every organ of your body will be able to hear what the person is actually saying. So listening involve you. Please excuse me. I'm sorry about that. Don't know why these people just come the stop area and then. So it involves identifying the sentences and words. So that is what listening is all about. Active skill. It involves you listening and of course understanding what you listen to, not just for you to hear. You have to hear. Listening start from you hear that. You have to also understand. So without understanding, so we have two situations in which you can listen. You can listen in a face-to-face conversation. Somebody is there, like your child is there in the thing. That is, of course, face-to-face conversation. Or even on phone, where you are both a listener and a speaker. Somebody is speaking, you hold on to listen to the person. When the person is done, then you speak. So something like that. That is says alternate listening. So let's move on by saying so non-interactive listening situations are okay. We say we have the interactive listening, like we say, and the listening is the one that has to do with the kind of face-to-face, like when they say something is interactive, you are not just listening to news when you cannot contribute, you cannot say something to. It's a two-way thing. The person is saying his own, you listen, you hold on, you alternate, like you also speak back. So that is interactive section. Like when you go to program, they say it's going to be an interactive section. It means everybody will be able to contribute one thing or the other to the section. So the one that is non-interactive is a situation where you listen to things like radio, television, lectures, or sermon. Like what is ongoing here now, you are actually just listening. You are not going to be able to speak back to me. So it is not interactive. It's just a lecture. So or sermons in church, you are not probably permitted under normal circumstances to speak back to the pastor when he's preaching on Sunday. So in such situations, we do not usually have the opportunity to ask for clarification or request for slower speech or repetition. In our first language, often unaware of how listening is, making it a seemingly natural process. Second language situation, what we are trying to say is that when we are talking about listening in your first language, like for instance, you are a Yoruba person, when somebody is speaking Yoruba, you just flow naturally. So you don't really feel like listening involves nothing sorry anything much like that, because you feel like at least you are saying I understand it because it's your first language. You seem to be so blended in that language that you even notice that to listen to someone is a big work. You understand? One is your first language, but when we come to second language like English now, in our place here in our country here, so in second language situation, a number of micro skills are you know who can actually sound of words. I know that a lot of words that are the same, that there could be confusion if you do not listen well. So you need some skills if you are going to actually listen where somebody is teaching you in a second language now, not your own primary language. You will need some micro skills to perform well in the activity. One is sound discrimination. If I stress a word wrongly now, the wrong meaning. If I should just say it like that, it's a question. Anyway. If I say, are you saying? you will take it as an insult. No matter what I meant, that to you is an insult. That is just a simple example. There are so many examples of if you don't know how to listen well to stress, when you listen to people, especially in a language that is not your first language, you feel like there will be some misunderstanding. So when somebody stress a word that is actually a kind of word that can appear in different form, you will get the wrong meaning, even though the person is trying to communicate something else. So that is one thing about stress recognition. You have to recognize the stress in that language. Then the tone and the rhythm patterns, the tone and the rhythm pattern. Like the one I used as example earlier is a tone. If I said, "Are you okay?" For instance, if I said, "Oh dear, are you okay?" When you hear that one, you feel like I'm being concerned. You like this person is concerned. That is what you feel when you listen to that and I say, "Are you okay?" You feel like, this person is concerned about me. But if I ask, "Are you okay?" You say, "Are you okay?" That one sounds like somebody is trying to. That is the difference between the two of them. So for tune, so don't forget the things you need for a second language listening. Discriminate between sounds. You must be able to recognize stress. You must also be able to know tones, sorry, the tune and the rhythm pattern. You must have knowledge of vocabulary. If you are going to listen to a very high placed professor now giving a speech, if you don't know enough vocab in the English language, you are likely going to get lost in the speech because you won't be opening dictionary every time the person opens or sorry says a very big word that you are not conversant with. So you need to build your vocabulary. Now, in the second language, which one comes before which one? Before which one? Then basic syntactic and grammatical patterns on each of these micro skills in subsequent courses. So syntax is the rule of grammar. It's a rule of grammar. It shows that the arrangement of the grammatical expression. So, and a host of sub skills which added to the complexity of listening skills, most especially in the second language context. You see, all these things we are actually talking about the tone, the rhythm, what other patterns. If it is your first language, we are talking of your primary language, you don't have an issue. You naturally blend in your first language. So listening in any language requires focus. Mind you, you should know that the primary aim of listening is to understand what the person is saying. So far more than you just hearing the person. You can just be hearing the sound the person is making without deriving any meaning from it. That is not listening. Listening goes far beyond just hearing. It goes into making meaning out of what is being heard and properly understanding what the person is saying. So it is a skill that some people need to work at harder than others. People who have difficulty concentrating and are typically poor listeners. You see, one of the first skill you will need in listening is the ability to concentrate. When you mean by temperament, you know, your body is always dancing around. So those kind of people they can't listen well. You need a concentration skill to be able to listen very well. So that's an important. Let's look at the example of the babies that you are actually learning to teach. Babies learn this skill by learning how to speak the language, while adults do the same in learning a second language. The speakers may or may not include native speakers for or recorded voices. The most important thing is to listen to a variety of voices in the target language as often as. If you want to learn English now, you have to listen to somebody who can speak fluently in British accent, somebody who can speak in local accent, somebody who can speak in American accent. So you have to, like, the more you listen to people, different people in that same language, the better you are going to blend into the language. So to become a fluent speaker, one needs to develop strong listening skills. Listening not only helps you understand what people are saying to you, it also helps you to speak clearly to other people. When you probably don't know how to pronounce a word today, but you listen to someone tomorrow who pronounce the word accurately, the next time you want to make a speech and you need to adopt that word, you'll be able to pronounce that word correctly. So not only have you understood what the other person said during the speech, it also help you to grasp some proper way of pronouncing some words which will help you in your own next speech. So that is what they are trying to say, that even though we know that the primary aim of listening is to understand, but that is not all listening does. It also helps you to be a good speaker anyway. That is where you see that there is a relationship between listening and speaking. You know, we mentioned earlier that these four of them, they have interrelationship and interconnection. There is a way they are connected to each other. So it helps you to learn how to pronounce words properly, how to use intonation, and where to place stress in words and sentences. Now, this makes your speech easier for other people listening to you to understand. Now, this is why listening is intricately connected to speaking, like I've mentioned earlier. Each of these skills are interrelated in one way or the other. So, to be a good listener, the ability to listen very well will definitely develop in you the ability to speak well. Because I don't know if you have experienced this before. I think children do this a lot. When they watch a character in the movie, some of them tends to want to speak like that character, the same way the character speaks. So if your child is basically or naturally the type that you allow to watch movies where they speak wrong English or speak bad words, that child will naturally blend and speak with such type of intonation, such type of uh, accent. But if you allow movies where they speak good grammar, construct grammar very well, you find that, naturally, even without being taught English a lot in the school, that kind of child will speak better. That's an advantage. The child will speak better than his or her mates out there. Why? Because they tend to want to be like whom they are watching, whom they are following. And even you at home, if you use proper accent, if you speak well, there's a tendency that as your children are listening to you, they want to reproduce that level of speech in themselves. They want to imitate, they want to copy. So that is how listening is interrelated to speaking. You've done a productive skill. You are not producing when you are listening, rather you are receiving. First thing you've learned about it, and your primary aim is to understand what you are listening to. And you can also become a good speaker when you are a good listener. We have some micro skills, if you don't forget, in this same under this same listening, we've talked about micro skills that helps you to understand a second language. We said in your first language, which is your own primary language, it is not necessary that you need micro skills to understand or to blend well in your primary language, your first language. But in the second language, you will need some micro skills to blend well, like sound discrimination, recognition of stress, tone and rhythm patterns, knowledge of vocabulary, word order patterns, and basic syntax and grammatical patterns, and other type of micro skills that you will need. So let's go to speaking. Let me see. I hope we still have time. Reading and writing. LSRW. Thank you, ma. That's absolutely correct. So let's move on to speaking. Speaking is the in the oral mode. In the oral mode, don't forget I would say we have oral and the literacy. So in the oral mode of language skills, we have speaking as the productive skill. When you are speaking, you are constructing, you are building, you are dishing out something from within you. So that is production. You are producing sound, you are producing. So speaking is a productive skill, while listening is a receptive skill. Please don't mix them up. Listening is a receptive skill. Speaking is a productive skill. Now, speaking is a productive skill. The delivery of language through the mouth, that is speaking. The delivery of language mouth. Now, let me take an ice breaker. An icebreaker, since I've been talking for long. Let's see this. This is a very short icebreaker for you to see if you have been following. So just fill in the gap, ma, while I continue. So to speak, we create sounds using many parts of our body, including the lungs, the vocal tract, vocal cords, tongue, teeth, and lips. You see, you may think that speaking is just all about your tongue dancing in your mouth. No, there are a lot of things that participate in you being able to talk, being able to make a speech, a sound. Now, this vocalized form of language usually requires at least one listener. Well, you can soliloquize actually, like you can speak to yourself, but to have a proper speech, at least one person must be there to listen, like we are doing now. This class is not a large class, just I and you in the class. Or at least we have one listener, so it makes him a speech is ongoing. So, when two or more people speak or talk to each other, the conversation is called a dialogue. Well, this is not something you cram, it's not something you don't know before. If you call your younger sister and you, or you are with your siblings and you guys are actually talking about something, maybe you have a wedding to plan, and you're actually planning the wedding, that everybody's bringing suggestion, you talk, your younger sister talk back, and then you respond. What is actually going on there in that short meeting, that little meeting, is a dialogue. You people are dialoguing about an event. Also be planned and rehearsed, as in the delivery of speech or presentation. When you have a seminar to present in the school, you find yourself a night before trying to even presenting to your children. Some parents do that. They call their children in the parlor and try to do that and see how it goes. They ask for the honest opinion of their kids or maybe their spouse. Some of them do it with their husband. Okay, please be an audience and let me present this my seminar here and let me see how I'm going to flow. That is rehearsal. You're actually rehearsing what you will do tomorrow at the presentation or at the speech ground. So sometimes we rehearse speech before we go to make them, because you've written it down. You also learn that the reason why we say these four of them are interrelated is that to have a proper speech, you must have a note that you've written down. You must have written the speech down on the paper. That is where writing is important to speaking. Before I can speak, you see the president making a speech now, you see a lecturer or a professor delivering a speech in a convocation meeting or an orientation meeting, you find out that they don't just start saying things from their head anyhow. They have written down the speech. So I will need the skill of writing for me to be able to be a good speaker, because I must have written down my speech. So that is the interrelationship between them. Now, speaking, like the other skills, is more complicated than it seems at first and involves more than just pronouncing words. Humans are faced with three kinds of speaking situations. We have just two types of listening situations, if you remember. We have the interactive and the non-interactive under listening. But now under speaking, we have three. And the three of them are interactive, partially interactive, and non-interactive at all. And let's look at what the three of them means. For the interactive speaking situation, is a kind of situation where you have face-to-face conversations and telephone calls, in which we are alternately listening and speaking, and in which we have a chance to ask for clarification. Please Can you kindly repeat that part? I haven't gotten it well, so you'll be able to say that in an interactive speaking section or a slower speech. You can request that. Oh, sir, please. It seems your speech is so fast. Can you kindly calm down, please, or kindly reduce your speech, or you know your speed rather. Kindly reduce your speed, so we'll be able to get the message clearly. So that can happen in interactive section because everybody is allowed to talk. Can the person is there with you face to face, or even if it's a conversation on the phone, if somebody is ordering, please calm down, calm down, calm down, please. I'm not getting you. Can you just calm down and take it slowly? So that is it. So from our conversation partner, so some speaking situations are partially interactive, such as when giving a speech to a live audience, where the conversion is that the audience does not interrupt the speech until you are done. So the speaker nevertheless can see the audience and judge from the expressions on their faces and body language whether or not he or she is able, is being understood or not. You know, we have verbal cues and non-verbal cues. And non-verbal cues even speak louder than the verbal cues. Like what people are actually, the reaction of people towards something speak far, 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 far louder than what people say out of their mouth about something. So in this form now, we have partially interactive. This our class that we are having now, you can say it's a partially interactive section because although you are allowed to interact with me through the chat box, but it's not like you are seeing me now and then we are actually discussing or talking. No. So also when somebody is giving a live speech, it's also like that. You see the person being in the front of a large audience on the podium delivering the speech. The only way he is able to know whether his speech is impacting or not is through non-verbal cues, expressions on the audience faces and body language and the rest of them. Okay, so some few, I'm here now. Some few speaking situations may be totally non-interactive, such as when recording a recorded broadcast by the president of the nation, a non-interactive section. All you will just have to do is listen to that one. When you have recorded audio broadcast or radio broadcast, when you are listening to radio, you actually cannot talk back. You can't. The person presenting don't even know where you are listening. Doesn't know how you are expressing, whether you are understanding or not, whether you are showing some non-verbal cues or not. No, the person will not be able to see that. So that is totally non-interactive. So three situations or three speaking situations: interactive, partially interactive and non-interactive. Two listening situations: interactive and interactive. So let's finish up on listening. So on speaking. Speaking can also be formal or informal. Informal speaking is typically used by members, friends, your peers, your gang, your group, or people one knows well or is familiar with. That is informal. Well, this one is not something I think we should be dwelling much on. You know that already. That when you are talking about formal setting, it's different from informal setting. Informal setting is the one you use with your close associates, while the formal setting is, or the formal speaking, occurs in business or academic situations, or when meeting people for the first time. When you meet someone for the first time, you are always and so on. So you have to be formal, even if they appear to be probably younger than you, or see by being formal on your first attempt. Somebody calls your line for the first time, you courtesy demand that you have to be formal. You don't just jump into how far are you, where are you, who are you? No, no, no. You use that with your associate. So sub skills of speaking include the ability to produce or pronounce rather words distinctly. So that when I am saying the word okay, I'm looking for a perfect word to use for example, where I need to pronounce distinctly for you to understand which one of them I am talking about. Okay, if I should use the word safe. For instance, now the word safe and save. You know, if you are not very careful, safe is to say that a situation or an environment is safe for you. That means no harm is coming. You understand? So, oh, this place is safe. That is the F, the one with F, safe. But the other one with V, which is save us, Lord. Save us, Lord. Or please save me. Please save me. So if I'm making a speech, if I do not pronounce them distinctly, there is a tendency that if I say save, you will probably write the SAFE. So I need to be able, as a speaker, to distinctly pronounce to show that this one is F, safe, from save, which is V. So that is one thing you need to know. It's a soft skill in. And then the use of stress and intonation patterns too. Like we've mentioned during the time of listening, when I say, are you okay? And I say, are you okay? The two of them. So the stress and the intonation pattern. Intonation can either rise or fall. So, but it will give different meaning to uh, your speech. So, use of correct forms of words and in correct order is another one. The appropriate choice of vocabulary and register, depending on the speech audience. You understand? The type of vocab you are going to, you cannot be teaching primary school children now and you'll be using very high vocabulary. Who are you trying to impress? No, 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 no. You don't need, in fact, you need to speak in their language, in that their own tata English that they understand. So you can't you use, I mean, use a very big, high profile language. No, 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 no. You all use and the register. So your register is just the words you've already saved in your vocabulary. So, or register of words. We are talking about science now or about medicine. Medicine has its own register that contains words that are related to medicine. So class between main ideas and supporting details. You've done this in just one or okay, sorry, we're currently doing it in just 102. You need to know which one is the main idea and which one is just additional details, which is just like an explanation to the main idea. So you should be able to you should be able to infuse logic into one speech. Okay, you should be able to infuse logic into your speech. Like know how to arrange. Okay, let me start with the most important point and then start going down small, small so that I'll catch their attention from the beginning. You should have logic when you are speaking. So why speech seems easy in first language, just the same way we say that in your first language, when you are listening your first language, it's easy. If somebody is speaking to you in Yoruba now, you listen fluently, you listen, you blend in straight. And when you want to speak in Yoruba too, it seems easy for you. You can produce speech, somebody will understand clearly, distinctively, you speak, and everything will be okay. But in the second language, it may not be so. So, first language. So, looking at these sub skills emphasize why speaking has to be specifically taught in learning second or other languages. So, in order to learn second language, to be able to speak in a second language, you seriously need to be able to do this. You need these skills that we've mentioned, sub skills that we've mentioned for listening. Use of stress, correct form of words, having proper vocabulary and register, the main ideas and supporting details, and using logic in your speech. Having done that, that brings us to the end of the class today. We will continue with reading when we come to the next class. In our next class, we'll start from reading. I believe we have done enough here. Yes, save and save and save. All right. Enjoy. We'll start the next class in the next, let me say like 6:10, 10 minutes after 6, I will start it. So just thank you.